Hey folks, welcome back to the Trinity Episcopal Church YouTube Bible study. I'm the Reverend Jimmy Abbott, the priest here at Trinity on Galveston Island, and today we're looking at Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. This is the Old Testament lesson for Sunday, March 20th, 2022, the third Sunday in Lent. This is the famous story of Moses meeting God at the burning bush. Moses is, of course, tending the flocks of his father-in-law Jethro, and he comes to Horeb, the mountain of God, and God is revealed in this burning bush. And then God reveals God's own name. God says, "I am who I am." So much to unpack in this story. Now that I've been a priest for nearly 12 years, which is hard to imagine, I've heard lots of sermons about this. I've preached lots of sermons about this, and it breaks out into two ways. One of the ways is just that, is how Moses meets God. And then that whole experience, the whole wondering about what it means for God to reveal God's self to Moses, and then Moses' call to ministry from there. All very important, and I think there is a lot there. I know that I have met God in certain places, not like a burning bush, but I have met God, and then God has commissioned me to go and do something. But the other way to look at this is, what does it say about God, that God would reveal God's self in this way? One of the ways to look at this is that this is the gospel right here. This is the summation, the fullness of the Holy Scriptures, that God would reveal God's self to us. And that's it. That's the whole story. That's the whole gospel. That God is not hidden, but that God is disclosed to us. My old seminary professor, Kate Sonderegger, says that in this we see that God is not far off. God is not incompatible with this world, but rather that God is very compatible with this world. That God is, sure, unique, but that God is in and active in this world as well. This really gets down to those two ideas of what is theology. Is theology about, is it human-centered? Is it anthropomorphic? Is that how we think about God? Or the other one is, how is God revealed just in God's self? And oftentimes I think in theology, being humans, we think about all the human implications. But in this story today, I would like us to think about what the burning bush reveals about God, in God's self. I think one of the things that it reveals, of course, other than that this is the gospel, is that God is inexhaustible, that God is of such abundance that there is this burning flame, but it does not consume the bush. That no matter how much we go on in this world, God will always continue. God never ceases. God is bigger and larger even than our own categories can imagine. I think a lot about this when it then does come to pastoral care, and you might have some sort of grief or anxiety or concern or care that you're bringing to God, and maybe you don't want to voice that to God because you're worried. It just seems like too much to speak, maybe too much for God to hear. What I would say is, no, actually God can hear it all because God is inexhaustible, that God continues on and on forever. God is eternal, and God can take even your worst anxieties and nightmares, and you can hand those over to God. God is big enough. And in the same way, God is big enough to take all of our rejoicing and all of our gratitude. So that's where I'm going maybe in my sermon, is the sense of God's inexhaustibility, that the bush is burning, but it's not consumed. Therefore, we can give everything, every bit of ourselves to God, as God has given every bit of God's self to us. I know that's a lot of circular talk right now, and maybe you're just scratching your head. Why did I waste these 5 minutes of my life? Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Sometimes that's what theology does. But thank you so much for joining. Make sure that you subscribe and you can watch another video, maybe a video that has a little bit more oomph to it. But thank you all so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in church, either online or in person on Sunday, so that we can worship this God of inexhaustibility together. Thank you.